So my name is Ramsey and I live at the intersection of Bra and Brother because of where I've grown up and what I've been exposed to. What I know about life is when you are brought up in this crazy world, you need a level of madness in your career, you need a level of madness in your fatherhood, you need a level of madness in your family life in order for you to survive in this crazy world. So welcome to Monday Madness. With me here is
Babyface. Eddie Ashore. Ni nini so umejiita bra
Well,
intersection.
you know, it's because he rehearsed. So
He rehearsed,
one
yes,
more time.
Eddie-
One more time. Let's take it
Eddie-
one more time.
Eddie Ashore. Yeah, I don't live at any intersection. Actually, kwa junction. yeah, DC. Ya Kilimani na Kawangware
Well,
hapo.
that
Lavingware.
Aya, safi basi.
Yeah.
Mr.
Chairman, aka Paul. Happy to be here as always.
Yeah.
No intersection, just where things meet. Greatness.
Great. Man.
And then
Lovely.
finally, we have our guest for today. This is a guy we're chanting around today. You know what part your story yote. Please introduce
My name
yourself.
is Akil Ahmed, entrepreneur, and the method to that madness.
Well done.
Yes.
You guys had rehearsed, eh?
No, nobody asked by the way. We just,
You just take what you're given,
Nikujifahamu.
you add
Yeah.
on to it.
Nikujifahamu. So,
Yeah.
karibu sana to the podcast, Akil.
Asante sana.
For guys who may not have a context to who Mr. Akil is, I knew Akil when Akil was a poet, and Akil knew me when I was just a random guy painting and talking nonsense on the internet. So,
Wow,
Ratchet
that's
days.
years
Ratchet.
back.
You're
You
still
know,
a
you must
random
now what
guy.
you should do is
That
just
was
share.
2009.
You must share stories that he's never told us. That's what he's trying to say.
no, but today it's about him. So
No. But he'll explain.
yeah, tutafika hapo.
Tafika.
So, Akil, you've gone through the full creative cycle. A lot of people are never fortunate to go through it. So you've been a writer, you've been a poet, you've performed. I guess you've won a couple of awards as well as a slam poet. You've gone into the agency world, you've done your thing, and you came out of the agency world and started your own outfit. First, tuanze from the very beginning. How did you end up how did you start as El Poet? What was the
Hiyo jina, man.
ulifikaje hapo kwanza? Ngoja.
Only OGs wanakumbuka.
Yeah.
I think my journey is interesting because I was raised by my grandmother. My mom lived in the UK, so she was supporting the family while we were here. Trust fund baby. Those because zinakuja tu in British pounds.
Yeah.
Sterling.
Sterling. Wendo najua.
Yeah, mate.
And at that time, there were two itches like zilikuwa zinanisumbua. One was I always believed like I was a creator, like those are creative itch. And on this other side, I always believed like I'm Somali, so we are very enterprising, and that the entrepreneur in you was always like just jumping out.
Yeah.
And when I went to uni in USIU.
Yeah.
And USIU was very weird for me because I'm a guy who was born in Isli, lived in Park Road, moved to South Sea, and then you go into this world that's very international. So there's an Indian community, a white community. It was very multicultural as a school.
Yeah.
And finding your feet there was a bit awkward for me, especially in the first year. Because
Yeah.
you've entered and like the English, like
Hawezi sema ni ati lazima useme wagwan.
hata hakuna wagwa.
This is how are you, sir?
Ilikuwa is how.
It's how.
How's it?
Is how.
Is VP.
Is VP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked that because it shaped me and like exposed me, like I exposed myself and I'm usually very curious, like I'm personable, I'm empathetic, and at any given point it's easy for me to make friends.
Yeah.
And through that, a lot of the friends that I was with were also very artistic, like very creative, and it's been consistent over the years. Like all the people like I've been around were like they were made from the same fabric, I would say. And then I used to write a lot of poetry, and there was a time when I think it was Adele.
Yeah.
She used to have like an open mic event
I
at
remember.
Nairobi International School.
Yeah.
One day I entered there with my writing and I was reading in front of people, and like people were like appreciative, and I was like, okay, this might actually be a thing. And then I realized like there were celebrities within that space. There are people who had made a name,
Yeah.
were hosting gigs,
Yeah.
they were being paid to perform spoken word poetry,
Yeah.
and there were many events within that space. So I started honing my craft then. I was with one of my younger brothers. He's called Abu Sens. He's a brilliant mind. So we started taking it very seriously. And we noticed that you have to like give yourself a stage name. I took your L Poet as the poet.
Yeah.
And we started performing. And it was quite competitive. Like we were performing across Nairobi.
Yeah.
In all these event spaces, festivals. And at that time, we were very artsy, but it got to a point when for you to like perform, you need to create a stage for yourself
Yeah.
because it's a very timid art and people have to like even how people clap, like people like snap,
Yeah.
like it's very like at that time very woke.
In the generation,
Yeah.
Still
And I
is.
was like,
in the federation,
Just as, you know,
Yes.
in the emancipation. So let me ask you. So you this guy grew up in Park Roads, Isley. You found yourself at USIU. You're now performing as a poet. Your name is out there as El Poet. How do you find yourself in the advertising world from there?
Yeah, so it's interesting because that's what I was saying. You have to create a stage for yourself, and that means you have to like come up with an event concept, and within that you have to like get people there.
Yeah.
And we used to be very like guerrilla at that time. We'd print posters. We'd make sure those posters are everywhere. Nairobi Uni town, like it Allianz, like everywhere. At that time, Facebook was a big tool. It had that event section. You could create like an event. You make sure like you invite people. Like if you have a list of like, so you've invited people like 12,000 people. You know, like 500 are gonna come.
Yeah.
And then now you have to learn how to charge for the event. And I found that really interesting because every event we touched was successful.
Okay.
And then we were sort of like brought into this Story Moja Hay Festival world,
Yeah.
which is a big literature festival
Yeah.
in Kenya. It's still ongoing right now, and they're looking for around 9,000 people. At that time, to bring 9,000 people to one literature event, a very timid art. Like they were getting all this literature, like Wallace Soyinka and all these writers from Lagos and everything, and you're bringing them here, and there has to be like a way to like create hype for that.
Yeah.
And spoken word always like lives in this intersection between hip hop and poetry, and it's and
you got
it's
that.
and it's flowy and it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So we started creating event properties. At that time, there was an event that was called the School Bell Rings,
Yeah.
and we made sure everyone in Nairobi knew about what that thing is.
Yeah.
And we were able to bring like around 4,000, 5,000 people to that festival through that. And we realized, in as much as we're artists, like we're also like creating value and bringing people, and there's an element of marketing and community building and culture, like you're activating culture. And we lived, we used to say like in like the underbelly of Nairobi, because there's Nairobi and it's very mainstream here. Like your time, Kina Nonini, Nani, all
Nairobi,
these things. But there's the
Kanairo.
underbelly. That is where a lot of the art was made. It is Wapi, where Kina Okto, Calligraph, like they made their name.
Yeah.
Because if without performing at Wapi and wowing the crowd, you're not really an artist
Yeah.
per se. And it was, we sort of got into this place where we were like, okay, so this is the art of the business, but what if we found a way to like now the business of the art?
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough, like there was an event that I had curated that was really interesting, and one of the sponsors of that event was an ad agency, Creative Edge.
Yeah.
And out of that, I got my first job. And when I was there, I was very curious because I felt like I understood digital.
Yeah.
And digital was very tiny then. Like it was just Facebook and and that's
social
where the
media,
community- It
actually.
was social media. I understood it really well, and I knew from a young age how to mobilize people.
Yeah.
Like if there's an event, a concept, and I knew how to get people to that place. And ad agencies at that time knew how to create artworks and communicate. And I was very curious about the science of that. So it was a digital, so the Creative Edge was digital, BTL and ATL. I used to spend a lot of time with like the ATL guys just to understand. The creative director there was called Porras, and GM was called Jimmy. And I used to spend so much time. Like I would get a client brief, take it to them, but I would also want to like take a stab at it. So while they're doing it, I'm also doing it, and then we compare notes because I just wanted to like understand the space fully. I did like 2.5 years there, and then before that, I had failed as an entrepreneur. I'm an avid gamer. Like I love gaming.
Yeah.
And I thought I could turn it into like a business. And when I was living in South Sea, there was a place we used to call it Recupero, and so it was a gaming parlor. I had bought with my friends a few PS3s. Then guys were coming, and then the Kanjos just hit us so hard. Like it was so hard. Sijui, amna
License.
no, like sijui fire extinguishers. Sijui like
Yeah,
well, like it was
those
just
small
tiny
things.
things
Small tiny things.
Small
Yeah.
that
license.
really frustrated us.
Yeah.
And then I was speaking to George Indirangu. He was in Rwanda. I was like, there's this concept I started. Do you think it would work in Rwanda? He was like, yeah, maybe. Let's try. I took a loan, went to Rwanda, we set up this thing, came back is when I got that job, and that failed miserably.
In
because
Rwanda?
Rwanda at that time was very young.
Yeah.
People didn't understand these things. It was when malls were being built, but here malls were already a thing.
Yeah.
So that failed miserably, and we lost like 2 mic there, which we thought, oh, so it's upcoming in nothing.
I have
Like,
a question
yeah.
on that. Sorry. Do you think failure as an entrepreneur is like it's like the step? It's like, what do you call it? The
It's
ingredients.
the boom boom sauce.
If yeah, it's like if you've not
Yeah.
failed in at least the first few ventures you've done, you're not really an entrepreneur. You're
Yes,
just like a
there's-
biashara guy.
it's
You're a guy.
failure. It's all
You know what I
about
mean?
failure and luck. It's
Yeah.
failure, drive, and luck.
Yeah.
You wanted to do it and doing it, and
Yeah.
then learning from, because you will fail.
Yeah.
Do you think discipline, and as you continue the story, do you think discipline played a big part in how you change things?
I think I learned discipline when I was employed,
Okay.
not when I was
Working for yourself.
roaming and everything. Because
that's
when I was employed, and at that time,
Yeah.
that agency, there was my biometric, and
Yeah.
at 8:30, and I used to live in Syokimau.
Yeah.
I was paying my own.
That's before
rent.
the expressway.
Before, no, like at that time, the train it was launched like a few months after,
Yeah.
and I had to wake up at 5 o'clock so that you can get a seat on that train by 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that the train leaves Syokimau at 6:40.
Yeah.
You get to town at like 7:15, 7:20. You get to the office at 8.
Yeah.
Clock in to
clock
make sure
in.
you're,
And then that was easy. Going home after,
Was a
you leave
problem.
work at 6. Utasimama hapo railways, the mathri utapata at like 9. You get home at 10. You sleep.
and then you start it all over again.
He started,
And we used to work on Saturday as well. That was crazy. I did that for 2.5 years. I was going crazy. There was no life. And that taught me discipline because the idea of waking up,
Yeah.
grinding, and allocating like a big chunk of the day
Yeah.
to like your endeavor was like a big alternative would not have been born if I didn't go through that
Yeah.
phase. And salo hizo siku zilikuwa kiasi. Unalipa ka 30K hapo.
Yeah.
You're bowling.
Yeah, but to your point, I think employment has a lot to teach people.
Absolutely.
More so when I think there's a 2-step to it. You can learn a lot through employment as an employee, and then now you start to now see, okay, these are the gaps now when you become an employer.
Exactly.
When you become an employer, it's a whole different ball game.
It is a completely different ball. Because when we started alternative, I remember we got our first client. It was PRC,
Yeah.
Property Reality Company.
Yeah.
The gentleman, Brian Gashari, is like a brilliant entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And at that time, I used to tell my business partner, Samo, like, I feel like I've learned enough. It's been 2.5 years. I'm going crazy here. I want to leave. We can do this. And every time Samo used to work at Google, then it's like, nah, you gonna time. Like, you learn more, like, whatever. Then one day he just found me home. And I told him we have a meeting on Sunday with Brian and we have to pitch. And here's a pitch deck. I was like, okay, that's interesting. That was on a Thursday. Friday, I slept, relaxed. Saturday, Sunday, we met Brian. We landed the account there and then. And some of our initial work, because their concept was they would buy a big chunk of land, divide it into
And then
like
sell.
eighths, and then sell
Yeah.
it. And we did amazing campaigns with them. And then at that time is when like the idea of influencers was coming to play. Kina Rama on Twitter there, they're creating chaos. Sijui kuna circle, the circle, and if Kina Rama are not there, then the event is failed. Authority. And at that time, I'd like to believe we were one of the first agencies that took advantage of that wave. We saw it before the larger agencies saw it. There's that concept here, Landia 100K for PRC that we did that went like extremely viral on Twitter, and they sold out. And Alternative started being formed. Our second client was, and that's very interesting because it was Urban Bites, so Noda Industries. And for us, it was a good friend of ours, but he kept on saying, I'm not giving you my business until you guys have an office and an ETR machine. You're not, because PRC, the checks were coming to me, and then I figured out to like pay the designer and any at that time.
So it's still a briefcase agency at that point.
This time now you're like, anyway, Caesar has to be given Caesar's due.
Yes. And then now we said, okay, we registered. We had our first ETR machine. Now the invoices are given with an ETR. We're like, okay,
Big
we're a
boys.
business
So big
now.
boys and a big
We have a
boys.
bank.
Ushuru.
We have a bank account. We're paying taxes, and that was really interesting. And it was sort of like the rise of alternative. And I think what we took pride in while we were building alternative was we sort of had this hunch about good talent. And it was even how the name was formed, because I was in traditional advertising, and we wanted to, like, when I said, the art of the business or the business of the art, we didn't want to lose the art. So we got writers and poets within that space. Kina Ngatia was one of our first, and right now is one of the best performance artists.
Abu.
They have this property called Too Early for Birds. And they also went to Scanad and to like just expand their career. So we sort of like maintained that. And for some reason, like clients liked it and brands liked it. We went to pitch for Chase Bank, and we came in with that idea, and they're like, this is refreshing. We had this concept called Be Elsewhere, and it just went viral like on Twitter and everything, and they loved that. We did when Mnet were launching Maisha Magic East, and remember when those properties were being launched, we were a big part of that process. Even logo formation for Maisha Magic East was done by like a very young 7-man creative agency working at an apartment, and it was sort of like coming together. And then we had our first like a crazy moment. We had gone to Mnet, negotiated like a proper retainer. At that time it was like 7 SOC from like 253 SOC. And we were like, okay, this is interesting. We had a long meeting. It was like there for like 11 till like 4. We get home in a very like celebration, like the mood is light. I remember I was just chilling, and I was online on Twitter, and I see a Gafla article, and the title was like, CG Mnet winds down its East Africa operation.
Yo.
I was like, wait, I'm literally from the office.
Yeah.
Like, this can't be true.
Yeah.
And I called the client, and they're all at a pub Mali. They've been given their notice.
Whoa.
And that whole building that was always full
Yeah.
ended up being like 4 people left.
So Akil, I know we've talked about how you started Alternative, you know, from just being that port guy. Now you're a CEO. And I from my experience, what I know is there's certain levels you reach, and whether you like it or not, you're gonna be a villain to someone. It's a decision you have to make and live with as a dude. I don't know if it's the same for babes, but there's just a level you reach. You have to do villain stuff in order, because you know you're following
And
your
even
principle.
even if you feel you're doing saint stuff,
Yeah. Even if you're doing same
Yeah.
So there's
stuff,
somebody out there who's just like this is-
there's always somebody who's ready to call Paul a villain.
Yeah,
Akil is a villain. Eddie is a villain. Rama is a villain. So what's your villain story now? Tell us.
villain
Fika
origin
sasa,
story.
what's your villain origin story from Alternative now being up here?
hautapata anything.
Search bar iko hapo.
Twitter yangu ni United Lakers. I'm a very safe man.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I remember, and this was so hard. Like this, it's not even like a villain story. It's literally the hardest. I would say the hardest moment of my life. COVID hit like this.
Yeah.
In 3 hours, we had lost around 3.7 M in retainer business. In 3 hours.
That's monthly
Let
revenue. Retainer,
emails-
retainer means like
Monthly retainer
monthly
Yeah.
revenue.
revenue. Yeah.
Emails were
Yo.
coming, boom, 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 structured and very polite.
Yeah.
Inchcape, email imekuja. Oh, you know, we have to pause. Our luxury business is not going to perform in this period. We're going to wait it out.
Yeah.
Okay. You're like, okay, that makes sense.
another one.
Sijui ndo hawa watu wa Rekit wametuma email.
Hakuna mende
Yeah,
za
like-
kuuliwa time ya COVID.
Hapana, like the main business.
Oh, yeah, the
we're
main
handling
businesses, yeah,
one of the
okay.
brands.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Okay, it's getting scary. 3 more emails come.
Yo, 3 hours.
Same day, from like 11 to like 2, 1 o'clock there.
The same day.
Yo.
Same day.
Yeah.
And we thought, because one of the clients was very proactive.
Yeah.
It was Prudential.
Yeah.
I respect the CEO now. She was the CCO then.
Yeah.
She's called Gwen.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's take advantage of this phase.
Yeah.
Let's do great work. Nini. So she locked in.
Yeah.
And we thought that would be the energy. And then we looked out. And I know when you're running an agency,
Yeah.
you cannot make decisions on project business. You
Yeah.
can only make
No, of
decisions
course, yeah.
on retainer business.
Yeah.
And now we have a team of 40, 45. Our office is in Riverside.
Mm.
The rent there is premium.
Yeah.
And you're faced, and it was close to end month, and you're faced, and you have to make a business decision.
Yeah.
At that time, I felt like people who took advantage.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, yeah, it's COVID, let's slash people's pay.
Yeah.
We were not facing that.
Mm.
We had 3 options. We close, we reduce our staff number
Yeah.
to 10,
Mm.
or we find a miracle.
So what did you do?
And we did math. I remember with Samo, and all our math was pushing us to reduce our capacity to 10 people.
Yeah.
Like everything. And we even made the decision.
Yeah.
And it was gonna be hard, and we're gonna meet the team in like a Zoom town hall meeting the next day. And then Samo didn't sleep. Bless his soul. He did a lot of math. He found a way to like cut director pay by like 60-70%. And then like he did math, like people who are earning this by this, we cut this and any. And the math sort of like made sense, but didn't still, because we still needed to like augment a lot of our personal savings to like keep the
business
business
going.
running within that period. And we had the first meeting with the team. And the team have known us for a long time. So they cut us some slack on that first meeting. understood, they saw, they were part of the emails that were coming. But then I think after a month, when we're actually like doing the math on how we're actively gonna do it, legalities, letters, all those things. So it took time, and it's not like we communicated really well while we're doing that. So we sort of like went into like a hole,
Yeah.
and guys were anxious. At that time is when you're trying to negotiate with your landlord, and landlord is like, no, I'm not gonna cut. The few clients that have stayed want more work. They
For less.
feel like they feel like they're doing you a favor now that they've stayed.
Yeah.
So now it's not like work for people has reduced. Even if you've lost 70% of your business, it's not like work had reduced. And I remember how uncomfortable the second meeting was with the team.
When you had to lay the news.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so this would be the letter. And now we went in sort of like, okay, like people understood, but people had a month to actually think about like the implication of the
What does that
salary
mean?
cut
Yeah.
and the energy we got after. And even relationships that I thought I had cultivated with some of our employees that were beyond employment. It was more friendship and brotherhood, and even those relationships were strained.
Yeah.
And it was quite hurtful even to hear what some of them are saying out there about how we approached things, and I went into some, I wouldn't call it depression, but I'd call it like a funk,
Yeah.
because for those 9 months I never left the house. I was always in like pajamas day in day out, like morning till, like it was so hurtful. And I was asking myself, like, would I have done anything different? We felt like we're doing it for everyone, like we're trying, like, why are we losing like our driver, our cooks? Like, we wanted to do math to make sure that those people are kept in, and we don't need to like lose anyone throughout that period. And we wanted to be among the few agencies at that time that are going to survive this wave. And that's not the energy we got back, but we understood like it's survival instinct, and it's humans being like, and also it's mathing. If you've had a conversation with a landlord and they're not gonna reduce that rent,
What happens? Yeah.
what happens?
I want to maybe make a comment on what you've just said. And to me, the one thing that COVID really, really brought out that was very clear is during COVID, if it really, really, really affected you, you either lost a relationship, you lost a business, or
your
almost
life.
Or both.
lost your life.
Or your friend's
Or
life.
both in
100%.
in most instances,
100%.
almost both. So for me,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people whose relationships were strained during COVID and things never went back to
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
Half the people
Sure.
who survived with their relationship lost the biasharas.
You guys.
So you were
it
fighting
was
to
one
keep
or the
one
other.
thing. It was one or the other. You know, they always say like
Yes.
when you're busy fighting for this thing, this
Yeah.
other thing is getting away from you.
Yes.
For you, having to make the decision where you first off, you're a young person. Then you have these guys working for you who have dependents that depend on you.
Exactly.
And now you have to make the decision of saying, bro, I have to let you go. In terms of how difficult that was, I've run a company myself. And I remember when I had to let someone go, and it wasn't even someone who was on permanent pay.
Yeah.
It was a project basis sort of agreement.
Yeah.
And nothing of it wasn't even anything to do with my fault. I think it was just not a relationship that was working, that was beneficial to me as a company. How did you deal? Because you must have dealt with a lot of guilt.
And we were very weak and shitty. Like, if there's something we could have like been better as business people,
Yeah.
was the concept of hiring and firing.
Yeah.
Because the firing part was always important, whether it's COVID or not.
Yeah.
Like, it was a very hard thing for us to do. Like, because we operated with 3 key values.
Yeah.
One was Kaizen, like continuous learning.
Yeah.
2 was break things. So we were happy to like make mistakes, and we like gave people that like autonomy and freedom. And 3, we were people first.
Yeah.
We're one of the first few businesses that were offered people lunch consistently every single day. We didn't have set working hours. We tried our best to give our people the best working environment. That bore a lot of fruit because some of the industry elites right now are products of alternative, and I take so much pride in that. Like
Yeah.
Kina Kaesa, Kina Goofy, Kina Wanyuru, Moha Big, Collis. Like these are people who are literally the best talent in their craft right now in the industry.
Yeah.
And they came through like from internship to success.
So Akil, I know we've talked about how you started alternative, from just being that poet guy. Now you're a CEO. And I from my experience, what I know is there's certain levels you reach, and whether you like it or not, you're gonna be a villain to someone. It's a decision you have to make and live with as a dude. I don't know if it's the same for babes, but there's just a level you reach. You have to do villain stuff in order, because you're following
And
your
even
principle.
even if you feel you're doing saint stuff,
Yeah. Even if you're doing same
Yeah.
So
stuff,
there's somebody out there who's just like
there's always somebody who's ready to call Paul a villain.
Yeah,
Akil is a villain. Eddie is a villain. Rama is a villain. So what's your villain story now? Tell us. Hapo
villain
fika
origin
sasa,
story.
what's your villain origin story from
Twende
alternative
search
now being up here?
hautapata anything.
Search bar iko hapo.
Twitter yangu ni United Lakers. I'm a very safe man.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is I remember, and this was so hard. Like this, it's not even a villain story. It's literally the hardest. I would say the hardest moment of my life. COVID hit like this.
Yeah.
In 3 hours, we had lost around 3.7 M in retainer business. In 3 hours.
That's monthly
Let
revenue. Retainer
emails-
retainer means like
Monthly retainer
Yeah.
revenue.
revenue, yeah.
Emails were coming, boom, 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 structured and very polite.
Yeah.
Inchcape, email imekuja. Oh, we have to pause. Our luxury business is not going to perform in this period. We're going to wait it out.
Yeah.
Okay, you're like, okay, that makes sense.
another one.
Sijui ndo hawa watu wa Rekit wametuma email.
Hakuna mende za
like-
kuuliwa time ya COVID.
Hapana, like the main business.
Oh, yeah, the
we're
main
handling one of
businesses,
the,
yeah,
one of the
okay.
brands.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Okay, it's getting scary. 3 more emails come.
Yo, 3 hours.
Same day, from 11 to 2, 1 o'clock there.
The same day.
Same day.
Yeah.
And we thought, because one of the clients was very proactive.
Yeah.
It was Prudential.
Yeah.
I respect the CEO now. She was the CCO then.
Yeah.
She's called Gwen.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's take advantage of this phase. Let's do great work. Nini. So she locked in.
Yeah.
And we thought that would be the energy. And then we looked out. And I know when you're running an agency,
Yeah.
you cannot make decisions on project business. You can
Yeah.
only make
No, of
decisions
course, yeah.
on retainer business.
Yeah.
And now we have a team of 45. Our office is in Riverside.
Mm.
The rent there is premium.
Yeah.
And you're faced, and it was close to end month, and you're faced, and you have to make a business decision.
Yeah.
At that time, I felt like people who took advantage.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, yeah, it's COVID, let's slash people's pay.
Yeah.
We were not facing that.
Mm.
We had 3 options. We close, we reduce our staff number to 10, or we find a miracle.
So what did you do?
And we did math. I remember with Samo, and all our math was pushing us to reduce our capacity to 10 people.
Yeah.
Like everything. And we even made the decision.
Yeah.
And it was gonna be hard, and we're gonna meet the team in like a Zoom town hall meeting the next day. And then Samo didn't sleep. Bless his soul. He did a lot of math. He found a way to cut director pay by 60-70%. And then he did math, people who are earning this by this, we cut this and any. And the math sort of made sense, but didn't still, because we still needed to like augment a lot of our personal savings to like keep the
business
business
going.
running within that period. And we had the first meeting with the team, and the team have known us for a long time, so they cut us some slack on that first meeting. They understood, they saw, they were part of the emails that were coming. But then I think after a month, when we're actually like doing the math on how we're actively gonna do it, legalities, letters, all those things, so it took time, and it's not like we communicated really well while we're doing that. So we sort of like went into like a hole,
Yeah.
and guys were anxious. At that time is when you're trying to negotiate with your landlord, and landlord is like, no, I'm not gonna cut. The few clients that have stayed want more work. They
For less.
feel like they feel like they're doing you a favor now that they've stayed.
Yeah.
So now it's not like work for people has reduced. Even if you've lost 70% of your business, it's not like work had reduced. And I remember how uncomfortable the second meeting was with the team.
When you had to lay the news.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so this would be the letter. And now we went in sort of like, okay, like people understood, but people had a month to actually think about like the implication of the
What does that
salary
mean?
cut
Yeah.
and the energy we got after. And the even relationships that I thought I had cultivated with some of our employees that were beyond employment. It was more friendship and brotherhood, and even those relationships were strained.
Yeah.
And it was quite hurtful even to hear what some of them are saying out there about how we approached things, and I went into some, I wouldn't call it depression, but I'd call it like a funk.
Yeah.
Because for those 9 months, I never left the house. I was always in like pajamas, day in, day out, like morning till, like it was so hurtful. And I was asking myself, like, would I have done anything different? We felt like we were doing it for everyone. Like we're trying, like, why are we losing like our driver, our cooks? Like we wanted to do math to make sure that those people are kept in, and we don't need to like lose anyone throughout that period. And we wanted to be among the few agencies at that time that are going to survive this wave. And that's not the energy we got back, but we understood like it's survival instinct, and it's humans being like, and also it's mathing. Like if you've had a conversation with a landlord and they're not gonna reduce that rent,
What happens? Yeah.
what happens?
I want to maybe make a comment on what you've just said. And to me, the one thing that COVID really, really brought out that was very clear is during COVID, if it really, really, really affected you, you either lost a relationship, you lost a business, or
your
almost
life.
Or both.
lost your life.
Or your friend's
Or
life.
both in
100%.
in most instances,
100%.
almost both. So for me,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people whose relationships were strained during COVID and things never went back to
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
Half the people
Sure.
who survived with their relationship lost the biasharas.
You guys.
So you were
it
fighting
was
to
one
keep
or the
one
other.
thing. It was one or the other. You know, they always say like,
Yes.
when you're busy fighting for this thing, this other
Yeah.
thing is getting away from you.
Yes.
For you, having to make the decision where you first off, you're a young person, then you have these guys working for you who have dependents that depend on you,
Exactly.
and now you have to make the decision of saying, bro, I have to let you go. In terms of how difficult that was, I've run a company myself, and I remember when I had to let someone go, and it wasn't even someone who was on permanent pay. It was a project basis sort of agreement.
Yeah.
And nothing of it wasn't even anything to do with my fault. I think it was just not a relationship that was working, that was beneficial to me as a company. How did you deal? Because you must have dealt with a lot of guilt.
We were very weak and shitty. Like if there's something we could have like been better at as business people,
Yeah.
was the concept of hiring and firing.
Yeah.
Because the firing part was always important, whether it's COVID or not.
Yeah.
Like it was a very hard thing for us to do. Like, because we operated with 3 key values.
Yeah.
One was Kaizen, like continuous learning.
Yeah.
2 was break things. So we were happy to like make mistakes, and we like gave people that like autonomy and freedom. And 3, we were people first.
Yeah.
We're one of the first few businesses that were offered people lunch consistently every single day. We didn't have set working hours. We tried our best to give our people the best working environment. That bore a lot of fruit, because some of the industry elites right now are products of alternative, and I take so much pride in that. Like
Yeah.
Kina Kaesa, Kina Goofy, Kina Wanyuru, Moha Big, Collis, like these are people who are literally the best talent in their craft right now in the industry,
Yeah.
and they came through like from internship to success.
So let me ask you, as Akil, when you're having to let some of these very talented people go, and it's because as a business you have to make that call because the math is not mathing. At a personal level, for you to be able to sleep like those 8 hours, you're saying you didn't leave the house for like 9 months.
Yeah.
You're in pajamas. Like, how did you come out of that funk?
It's interesting because it's not purely out of like my own strength.
Yeah.
I'm quite lucky because I have amazing people around me. I have really good best friends, Mehdi, Moha, Amin, Abu, and all these guys who like there's a lot of perspectives, and like you're men, you know your role in society, and you're constantly having these discussions about how you get out of your funk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have an amazing wife who's very supportive throughout that period, and she was having it rough because she's a doctor, and she was doing like long nights at Kiambu Hospital.
Yeah.
And then, like, she disappeared for like 2 days, and she comes back. So it was tough for her as well.
Yeah.
And then I was also lucky because there's a product or a brand that we had ideated for a long time that we were about to launch into the market.
Yeah.
And it was called Aero. It was a footwear brand.
Yeah.
And the reception, so we ideated the concept really well. We made it part and parcel of culture, great influencers, great content, everything. And when we launched it, like the reception we got, the first day we sold like 100 pairs.
Okay.
It was crazy to even fulfill those orders.
Yeah.
And that month we had sold like 500 orders. And that sort of like brought back energy that I had lost.
Yeah.
And like the excitement of like developing concepts and seeing things come to life. And I think that is what, because that was around September.
Yeah.
And that was I would say the first time I came out socially outside from when COVID started back in like around March.
Yeah.
I was just indoors like the whole time, just playing games till like 5 o'clock in the morning, take 2 or 3 meetings. Like it was just a crazy, and that helped me. And now I believe like as a human being, but I think mostly as a man, if you don't surround yourself with people like a tribe that you guys speak the same language, have the same perspective, and you constantly challenge each other, it's so hard to live this life, because this is the crisis generation. Like our parents lived a very peaceful like existence. Like sai wake up Ukraine, Russia,
no, it's not even. I don't even think it's
like-
Ukraine, Russia. I think nowadays you wake up, by the way, you realize we need things our parents never had. Now we have to buy a microwave, have to buy a blender.
But
Those are bare minimum things
Yeah.
to us
In a bachelor pad.
in a bachelor pad.
In
But remember,
Waru.
our folks never needs to.
Yeah.
They never had budgets for those things.
But they also found a way to like succeed. Utapata tu ka mortgage mahali, sijui nini. Job security was there. Like
Yeah,
someone is working, your parents are working somewhere like that 5-40 years. Sijui like hizo gavas, civil servants, sijui what. Like, but sahi man, making it. This is a crisis generation. And there's so much we have to do because opportunities are everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're seeing people do amazing things, the rise of creators, and even policy, and like who's a good president, who's not. Kibaki, with all his faults, had one strong policy, and it's the reason now there are podcasts, there are creators, there like the idea of saying this is the CCOM line, we're gonna have fiber, we're moving things from analog to digital. That created careers. There won't be digital agencies. There won't be creators like
Without
that
them.
one policy
Yeah.
has fed people till now, and we're seeing the effects of that. And now opportunities are everywhere. Like you can learn one thing and make money through like learning one thing, but also like you have to protect your mental health. Like you have to, like now we're oversharing as a like our parents did
as a generation.
We are like
it's just that considering our parents' time, it's just that
I'm saying in
have
terms
the
of
platforms.
but also in terms of generation, ulikuwa unaambiwa nini na parents wako? Like sijui ukiongea kitu about family secret,
We are healing the trauma.
like utachapo hiyo usiku like but say we are open, like now we are seeing people like speak freely about their salos like on like online platforms like that was
The things that never used to happen, but the salos like your underwear. It was your secret.
Hey, Salos like you to the grave.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, Akil. So you've gone from this sport, you've climbed up the ranks, you've worked in an agency, you've started your own outfit, your outfit is successful, and then COVID hits, and then you're back to resetting. As a man, you have to reinvent yourself. Alternative. You decide. What was your decision? Specifically, my question is, what was your decision to decide to start building brands as opposed to chasing brands?
That's a good question, because it was, and it's a big frustration of mine till now, because the space, the advertising space as it's structured, stopped making sense. And I'm not.
It stopped making sense to the
to
advertisers or to the clients.
To me, and I'm sure a lot of people hold this frustration because so many things changed.
Yeah.
When we were starting, the people who are the clients, the people who are making decisions, like they are amazing minds.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's been diluted, but I'm also not saying it's not being diluted.
So what you're saying is
sorry,
been
not so
diluted.
much.
Are you saying what was
Like,
sales? What was sales wanafanya decisions
I
are
feel like-
marketing or what do
I
you
don't want
mean?
to take shots, but
Yeah.
the client that you're talking to right now and the clients we used to talk to
Back in the day.
then are two different people. Those are people who are driven, they had perspective, they wanted to win. And right now, there are people who are, it's a checklist.
I don't want to lose my job.
And they don't want to do much work. Like you might have amazing ideas.
there's
if
no
they
bravery.
don't understand it.
No,
There's no
mental
bravery.
It dies. And the recipe for success is always a strong agency and a very determined client.
Yeah.
That combination is like the recipe for success. And if that is deviated, if one side of the equation isn't working, you will consistently produce shitty work. And then that was my first issue. And then the second issue was the work itself. Because we could see, I promise you, we could see things happening 2-3 years before they happened. I remember we were looking for investments to develop like a digital portal similar to like an over-the-top platform like Netflix, Showmax.
Yeah.
Because we knew in 2 years. And I remember we had a pitch deck, everything. We were looking for investors. 2 years later, Netflix launched. 2 years later, Showmax launched. And we could see the space and how culture is changing. Like fitness as a space. Watu walikuwa wanaendaga gym. Sahii sijui kuna watu wa calisthenics, watu wa crossfit is a cult, sijui watu wa nini, watu wa bodybuilding. Like ukiita wase home, wase walikuwa nakam, kitu watadishi ni what you've put on the table.
Yeah.
Sahii sijui you have vegan friends, you have like culture has changed, people have niched out. So the idea
There's too many people to please and make happy.
and
That's
to
the problem.
communicate to and make them care about products and brands.
Yeah.
So the idea of a creative director coming up with a concept and then it's a key visual is made and then it's plastered across all channels is like that's ineffective. And CG content calendar, like oh my
Yeah,
God.
I remember.
CC.
If I see one of those things, I would go crazy.
So the funny thing about how I met Akil is when Akil was starting alternative agency, we used to brainstorm with him for
a
some of his
lot.
speeches. So
Taldi's,
yeah, so me and Akil would meet at
Java.
Java, or because on our way home we passed through the CBD.
Yeah.
And this guy would call us, like, it was me and Spencer, Caroline Spencer.
Spaniel.
Bro, I have a brief. I need us to put our heads together and think around it.
Yeah.
It's just that me and Akil were in totally different spaces at the time. I remember that at some point when you started Alternative, we were supposed to be a team.
I could, you
But
can't.
hiyo mwaka ndo nilipeana mimba. That's the year I got someone pregnant. So I was
Black table
like,
to
bro,
red table talk.
I would love to come and start this thing with you.
Yeah.
But right now I have an extra mouth.
That's life, man.
And you see, sometimes
Yo, man.
And we were young.
responsibility, sometimes I feel like, and something I keep telling guys, when you don't have kids, that's the best time kujituma.
Yeah.
Because your risk
Yeah.
appetite is way higher.
I don't think
When
there's
you're-
even a ceiling for it. Like,
There's no ceiling for
like
it.
you're just like, let's do this. Let's
Kichapo
I'm
Karudi. Yeah.
but like,
Studio
I'll tell you for
Avocado.
free.
Yeah.
I'll tell you for free. Right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
I'm still a risk taker. But every time I think about my risks, I always think, but what if?
Exactly.
But what if?
Exactly.
Because I'm cognizant of the fact that if I fail,
Then this is what.
I've not just made a bad decision for myself. It's going to cascade down to
Lambo,
someone
Nani,
else. The
like, yeah.
ripple effect is going to reach these little homies of mine. So you've started Alternative Agency. It's flying. COVID has happened. You've decided, anyway, you know what? Let's build our own brands. So far, where are you right now? What are you doing right now?
So we did Aero. Aero didn't work because the idea was to find a way to like keep that quality and make it locally.
Yeah.
At that time, the first batch was made of China.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to continue with the product like made in China. We wanted, so that's still like a dream. We'll keep it somewhere until we can figure out like a way to like make it locally.
Yeah.
And then I found myself in the food industry, which is quite bizarre. But at the end of the day, the idea is
Creativity.
it's creativity, it's brand building, it's like you're sharing something to the
Doesn't
world.
matter. Yeah.
There's a friend of mine called Ahmed who was building a commercial cloud kitchen concept.
Okay.
So he's building like the real estate for people to now come and build food products and brands, and influencers can come and cook and do content and all those things.
Yeah.
And he needed to build a brand. At that time, he came to Alternative, was like, yo, I need your help. And then I was like, you're an individual, you're an entrepreneur, you're young, you have this idea that's way ahead of its time. We're not going to charge you. So let's do it. And through that, we built a more intimate relationship. We used to talk about business, Nini, how is it going? He started growing, and he was getting brands that were being built, food brands that were being built in his kitchen to a point where these people were able to pay his rent, in a day's operation.
Really?
So I spoke to him. I was like, okay, so we're having a conversation. Like, what if we built food brands? I'm really strong with brand and marketing and building like cultural resonance with business. And you and his wife's a lovely lady who's now my co-business partner. She's called Nasra.
Yeah.
She understands food like uko to the
She's a
depth.
foodie. She's a proper foodie.
Proper like.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, and we came up with our first concept called Ayeyo.
Yeah.
And the idea was there's so many cuisines that have made their name in the local market. Like Indian cuisine is, we've accepted it. We've accepted
Chinese.
Italian cuisine, Chinese to some degree. Swahili has been like our pride as a country.
Yeah.
And we're like, there's so many Somalis in this country, and like our food hasn't become a thing. Like utenda pronto, sijui aliusra huko ukule na utoke,
Arosto.
but it's not been a thing. Like it's not been premiumized and packaged, and we're like, okay, what if we came up with a concept? We came up with a concept called Ayeyo. So it's made for delivery, and like from a packaging, logo, like aesthetic, product, like is crazy. There's a talk I did. It was a Muslim mentorship conversation. And I introduced myself. I was like, Akil Ahmed. I run this company called Tasty Grabs. So for food, what. And one of our brands is I started with Crispy Chick, which is our second brand. It's a fried chicken,
I love
premium
crispy
fried chicken.
Yeah, 'cause
And then
dude, man. Yeah.
I said Ayeyo, and it was an uproar. Like people went crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So it's a loved brand. Like it's really been adopted. And we launched Crispy Chick, and we'll be launching new made for delivery food brands
Yeah.
within that cloud kitchen space. And the idea was to prove that concept. There's so many people who want to like build products like sukuna recipe, shosho yako, siji what, and
Yeah.
can be packaged like it's
Yeah.
and before you needed like CG 13 mic, you build a kitchen space. Kenyans love ambience. You what?
Yes.
Before you actually put something together, how would you risk itakuwa nini?
Yeah.
But this one, in like 3 weeks, you can launch a product. You can, it will be like a mic or less to like launch the concept.
Yeah.
And then the effort you put in the market, who are the influencers you're partnering with,
Yeah.
and all these people, and less understanding how to like make it work
Yeah.
is what changes things. And that's the space I'm in right now. I didn't see myself in the restaurant space before that. Alternative didn't quite like die as a concept. It's just the model
The
that
model changed.
we wound down. We wanted to pivot,
Yeah.
but pivoting is expensive because we want to be a culture and growth agency now.
Yeah.
So we're driving performance and cultural acceleration and acceptance and just knowing. So now what we're calisthenics soccer in the market. Like
Yeah.
you saw this concept called Pocket Gym and
Yeah.
how it took over the space.
Yeah.
Like those niche concepts and how to plug brands and connect them with those niche concepts. That's the space we're getting into. There's a strategic partnership we've built. We'll launch quite soon. I'll be announcing. So Alternative will keep the service business, but it will evolve. I don't think we will ever build it into like a 50-man
Ad
agency
agency.
again.
I
Like
I actually, to some degree, feel like the traditional ad agency model is dead.
it's dead. It's just- or
And
rather, on life
it's-
support.
It's on life support. And the onus is on us as creative people, as agency owners,
Yeah. To figure out what.
to figure it out. Like, okay, so how are we going to ride this wave?
And which is sad because for young guys right now, you're coming out of Campo, you want to like build a career. Like even if you studied law or like CG agriculture, CG, I would tell you just go look for an ad agency and start. It's the fastest way to learn. So fastest place to like build perspective. If you can give yourself 2 years
You're
out
in
of
an
your
agency.
career, then pivot to something else you want to do afterwards, your mind will like expand. Like all the smartest people in Kenya are
I've
people
gone
from
through
the
an ad
agency.
agency because you see that's where you learn how to sell things, and you cannot
to
sell things you
speak,
don't
how
understand.
to come up with a concept.
Yeah.
You are exposed to so many different industries and
I
brands.
think it's the exposure that is.
Yeah. You wake up, it's bank. You sleep, you are thinking
condom
about
brand is
The
getting-
condom brand.
FMS.
like it's crazy. And then
It's-
now technology is shifting. AI is coming to the space. I'm telling you, like if you're a dude or a young girl right now and you have time, just go learn Python or anything, and you'd make a killing in the next few years.
Yeah.
Like the space is just there.
Yeah.
How do you think empathy do you think there is a role for empathy in leadership? And to what extent? Given what you've gone through with, Alternative and, changing to something else, what you started off with, what do you think the role of empathy is? Not just generally, but as a guy.
That's a really good question because there has to be some level of balance. And I think at Alternative, we didn't have balance.
Yeah.
You're too nice.
We were too nice. We cared. We were and we built actual friendships. And I feel like if you take me back, I wouldn't do it differently. But I wouldn't advise someone to do it the same
You wouldn't
way.
go to that degree.
Yeah, because we were very kind. And I also had two business partners, Samo and DC, who sort of like balanced it out. Someone was a big picture vision thinker. DC was very structured and kept things like locked in. We functioned as an actual corporate engine, like tax, admin, like all those things, HR. Like she was amazing. Like she was like the someone calls her like the quarterback. Like she was central to everything that we built there. So that balance sort of, and I was like the emotional guy. Like I wanted people to be taken care of, like to be treated well. Like we've never shouted at someone or even like just even corrected someone in front of people. Like it will be said, it will be like with a lot of respect, but also it will be about work.
Yeah.
So people sort of like fit in with that culture. It's a reason we were never able to like hire top level management at Alternative, because people are used to like how they've been managed for all these years. So you bring someone who's like bossy, like they would be chewed and spat out.
Yeah.
The 3 days, three working days,
Yeah.
uko nje. Yeah. So what I've learned is, and if I was to do it again in a different setting, if it's agency, I'll do it the same way.
Yeah.
In a different setting, I would say, as long as you've offered the best working environment and the business revolves around respect and the culture revolves around respect and people's feelings and desires are met, and you merge that with like performance, it's a good. I don't believe in like heartless leadership or lack of empathy in leadership. I feel like people who are very robotic in how they lead don't go far. Which weirdly they go far, but
They go far, but there's a lot of
Wolf, that
turnover.
guy had charisma.
There's a lot of
But he had
turnover.
charisma. Like he cared about what those people would make. Like he cared about their pockets. It just the culture was wild.
Yeah.
But but there are people who are very robotic in how they run business, and I would say that is not.
It's not.
That's not like. I would not work for someone like that.
I don't think even it would work right now in this current state of affairs, when, you know, like you said, we are sharing too much. It'll be like, hey, Akil Manze, it's not giving, you know, and then people
know
are like,
what's funny?
they cancel you.
You know what's
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
to add to that?
Yeah.
I've not shared this story anywhere, and I wouldn't even like fully share it.
Yes.
But January this year, I was employed at one Korean electronic company.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, saying
So
the
much
name.
for satellite.
as a head of marketing.
Yeah.
And the culture there was so pathetic.
Yeah.
In 3 weeks, I was out.
Yeah. Damn.
I resigned.
it
2
was-
weeks, served 1 week notice.
Let me return their phone. But they don't sell phones, right?
They sell other things.
I had a question. I had a question for. Fun fact, by the way, Akil doesn't remember this at all, and I've been waiting so much to tell him. In 2021, you interviewed me at Alternative.
Really?
Where?
You, I think, up
Your
next
name
to
change.
you at Fogo Gaucho. This was the time you called me there, Kanita. You were in jeans. I remember very well.
But the look at
But I wanted to
changed.
tell you,
That
yes,
is
bro.
so interesting.
Right.
That is-
That was-
I like
Yeah,
you know,
najua huwezi
Alternative was-
kumbuka.
I can't
Yeah,
'cause,
Alternative
you know,
was-
we've
yeah.
had like over 200, 300
yeah.
young talents who
Yeah.
passed
Yeah.
Through
Yeah.
Alternative.
Like
Yeah.
we've touched
Yeah.
and guided
Yeah.
so many careers.
But that
So
was not my question.
But that's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah, right.
Well, leave
I'm,
us
I'm sure
connect,
you.
yeah.
I'll show you the email.
Yeah.
Nini unaniharakisha. But my question is basically from everything that you've said, being a leader, you know, being a CEO, and also being a man, and also being a young man in the country. I want you to combine and, you know, just tell me, what have you finally come to terms with, you know, in all your experiences in corporate and then in entrepreneurship, Jua Kali, and right now as you are building yourself back up?
Oof, that is the
Deep question.
toughest question of the day. I would attempt to answer. I think what I've learned is we will always, I would say as people, but I've seen a lot of men go through this challenge, but it can sort of like fall in either categories and either gender. I've seen we are the most ambitious generation I have ever seen, but the generation that has technically achieved the least, because it's so hard to find someone of our age with like a moti that's not mortgage, and with a house like that's your house and whatever. But our dreams are like, people want to like achieve so much in such a short
We're
period
delulu.
of time. Yeah, we are very delulu, but we also have all the talent needed.
Yeah, we do.
I would say the thing that I've learned and I'm applying to myself is there's survival, where depending on your principle, you are taking care of a family or of family, and there's like, I don't think there's any man who does anything for themselves.
You have to
Like,
have you're saying someone
the-
needs to have a driver. What's your driving force?
Yes, for me is like, I have my mom, I have my family, I have my friends, and I wish to be financially capable and independent enough to be able to offer them a better life and put them in better surroundings, and in places where they can succeed a lot better. And you have to juggle between survival and success, because you can spend so much time and waste so much energy trying to achieve this thing that's beyond the horizon, and you're not doing the things that you need to do now. So if there's a job that's gonna pay you a certain salary to keep moving while you're trying to like build the framework for what your dream is, I would say take that job. And that's, I spent a year seeing that, because I spent a year building these food brands, and they were not in a place where they can pay me back. And in my head, I was like, your ego is speaking, and you're like, but you used to employ yourself for like 10 years. What do you mean now you have to go get employed again? What do you mean you have to like report to someone? What do you mean now you have to like live off Salo and Nini? And it was a whole year of conflict in my head, because I'm just like, there's so many people who are reaching out to like get you on board, and it's Kina Safaricom, and you're just turning them down, and you're like, that's, and then it gets to a point where now you have to.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to start earning, start making a living, and consulting is like too hapa na pale, and now you like. So I've learned like, you can tone down the ego, even if you've achieved a lot in the past. This is a different chapter. Like, do the things that need to be done right now to take care of the people you need to take care of, while you're still building on the dream.
So you value, basically, in what I'm getting is, if you have a purpose, it doesn't matter how you achieve it. All that matters is you're chasing it.
You're chasing,
whether you're chasing it as a
and you're surviving,
self-employed,
and you're still doing the basics while on that journey.
So you've done the full 360. Maybe what my parting should now be the last question before we release you.
Yeah.
You've done the full 360, and you've gone from creating employment to
Being
creating
employed.
brands to being employed. The big elephant in the room right now is we see a lot of and this is something that, I always used to joke about this. We can have a conversation as dudes without having to bash babes or having to blame babes for everything that's happening to us. In your opinion, in the current job market, because we have so many brand managers, marketing managers who are women. My workmates, half my workmates are babes, whether they be creative
60-70% of alternative are babes.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what do you think men are doing wrong or women are doing right for us to be able to see such skills tipping, that balance? And then there's also the skills tipping, because I've had my fair share of experiences as well, having worked with babes and having worked with dudes. Sometimes I feel like dudes almost feel like if it's a job or if it's a role, it's owed to them. Babes feel like they have to work for it and their keep. Do you think that's a correct assessment of what's happening right now? Or as an employer, I know you've employed a lot of guys. Do you think it's different?
I think there's a fundamental shift that needed to happen.
Yeah.
Like the voice of the woman has become stronger, and there's a lot of forces
Yeah.
trying to create some level of equality and like progress for women.
Yeah.
And it's a voice that I appreciate. It's a force that I appreciate. I support, and everything. But while that has been happening for the last many years, and it still has a long way to go,
Yeah.
it's started to bear results, and it can change. Like we've seen the march, stop killing women. Like there's still a lot of work that needs to be done for that force to be stronger and actually effective. But it started to bear fruits. But while that is happening, there's not been a voice
For
or a
guys.
force for the man
Tumelegea.
to Melegea. And the reason I appreciate individuals like Rama, whether it's Monday Madness or it's his Twitter, or he's been one of the consistent voices for what being a man should be, and being emotional and showing like everything together is like, and making mistakes and owning up to mistakes, and those voices are not enough. And there has to be a force that so that this level of partnership, because I feel like men and women together can like achieve so much.
Yeah.
And there should never be a wave where patriarchy has taken stage for so long and women's voices have been muzzled.
Yeah.
But then now we're seeing the rise of the woman's voice, and these people are confused. So what's the voice? Because that's why you're seeing red pill content,
Yeah.
like Andrew Tate and any, which I see where it's coming from, even if you don't subscribe to it, because there's a vacuum for like authentic male voices.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, and I'm so honored to be one of the first guests for Monday Madness,
Karibu.
and because spaces like this have to exist. And it's not like men are doing anything wrong. It's just that I
Well,
feel like there's no strong it's either Melegea or it's red pill talk.
Yeah.
Someone put it this way to me about 2 years ago when we started the Monday Madness. First, it's a problem. It's a double-edged sword. So men have been told to respect everyone except themselves. You respect all elder people, respect women, respect authority, respect all these things. But then ask the average guy, do you respect yourself? And watch how long they pause before they answer you. It's no wonder in this country, Jieshimu is an insult.
Yeah.
Jieshimu, bro. That's an insult. There's nothing offensive about it. But when someone tells you Jieshimu,
Respect yourself. Man.
it's bro, like you've reached the lowest low. So that's one end of it. Another end, I don't think a lot of us guys, when we were growing up, were taught how to deal with empowered women. That's why you're seeing Red Pill is filling that gap. We have not been taught how to deal with empowered women. When a woman walks into the room, a babe walks into the room and she's about herself, and she
They
can,
didn't even grow up
yeah,
because their voices have been muzzled for such a long time.
yeah,
And now, if whatever voice you've learned growing up is not the correct voice, there's no platform speaking
yeah.
about what's the correct voice.
You see, like for me, it's so obvious that sometimes, you know, when you're just chilling somewhere and you hear about how people reason and talk about some things, you might point out someone who grew up in a house where the mom never used to speak, because to that person, what you've seen growing up is what you think should be the norm.
Yeah.
Now we're living in a totally different reality.
And now you've seen that it's not the norm.
It's not the norm.
But the there are not enough voices.
There are not
like,
enough voices.
showing you how
Yeah.
to
How do you
how to
navigate?
be a man and navigate your manliness and like your masculinity within this space, and what's your role. And there should be more voices, more debates, more, and this is like one of them.
Thank you.
The modern man for the modern woman.
Exactly, and I feel like masculinity is not really a bad thing.
It's not. It should be.
It's sometimes I think we conflate. If you're a bad character, that should never be put on as that's masculinity. If you're a bad character, but if you're a bad character, a questionable character, that's just your character. It has nothing to do with masculinity, because masculinity has its role to play in society, and I don't think it should be a threat to anybody. Not a threat to younger guys, not a threat to women.
If anything, it should be inspirational.
It should be inspirational. And that's one of the reasons why we come here, we have these chats, and we have guys like Akil to tell us about his own journey as a man. So, Akil, do you have any businesses you want us to promote? Because here we're all about, picking up. If you're doing something great, for me, I feel like if you're doing something great, it's always nice.
You know what is so crazy about Ayeyo?
This guy failed you. Angeniambia.
How do
How
I
do you
trust
know
a
that
product
chick? What was
This
it?
guy
I've never seen?
crispy chick.
Crispy chick, bana.
Yeah, right?
And
guy
I've been
failed
seeing it
you.
all over
Yeah,
the
I
place.
was
I'm
willing
like,
to break my fast.
Let me do this
For you.
next episode.
yeah, we just need
On
to
us.
break bread. I know where you are.
We'll hold you to it.
Hold me to it.
On you. Okay.
So, when the world gets tough, you have to get tougher. And when things get soft, we have to clap for the people who are making things softer. I believe
Hakuna lines.
I believe it's always good to recognize where people are doing great,
Yeah.
because that's the only way we encourage better behaviors from people. And that's the way you get inspired and you aspire for more. So this has been Monday Madness with myself, Ramsey, Paul, and Ashoya. And our capable guest has been Akil Ahmed for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you guys on the next episode.